Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
I've been driving in my car. It's not quite a Jaguar. I bought it in Primrose Hill.
Now, according to the Daily Politics calendar, it's day 3 of the constitutional crisis, following the Lord's decision to vote down government plans to cut working tax credits. The skies haven't fallen in, but it has been raining rather heavily in London this morning. And it's left the government threatening to clip the wings of an unelected upper chamber. Plenty of questions remain about how the handling of this flagship policy went quite so badly wrong. Remind us of the whole story, Joko.
How much time have you got?
Lots.
In their election manifesto, the Conservatives said they would find £12 billion of welfare savings. The government didn't make it clear where they would find the savings, although appeared to rule out cuts to tax credits paid to families with children. In his summer budget, the Chancellor outlined £4.5 billion of cuts to working tax credits, benefits paid to people in work. He said a new minimum wage increase and a higher tax allowance would mean most families would not be worse off. But the Institute for Fiscal Studies calculated that from next April, 3 million families would lose more than £1,000 a year. A majority of MPs voted in favour of the changes 3 times. But this week, the House of Lords defeated the government in 2 separate motions and demanded a rethink. The government accused peers of overreaching, saying the defeat raises clear constitutional issues. But the Chancellor has now said there will be transitional measures to lessen the impact of the changes, with the details set out in next month's autumn statement. Meanwhile, the government has asked former Cabinet Minister Tom Strathclyde to lead a review of House of Lords conventions. Andrew.
Thanks for that, Joko. Brandon Lewins, you were warned by every think tank that knows about this, including right-leaning Tory-inclined think tanks. You were warned by a number of your own backbenchers. You were warned by the Sun newspaper. You were warned by the Mayor of London, who's a Conservative, not to proceed with the way the Chancellor was planning. Yet you did, and you're now in a complete mess. Why?
Well, the reality is there's 2 different issues going on. Obviously, there's the change in the way our economy works, which is what the Commons was voting on when he looked at tax credits. And I think absolutely moving to that higher wage, lower tax, lower welfare economy is the right way to go. But separately to that, the second issue is around an unelected chamber.
Right, I'll come on to that. I'm not asking about that.
But that's,
I'm asking you why
we are where we are.
But yeah, but I'm talking about the substance of the issue, not the process or the constitutionality. The substance, because that's what matters to people out there who could see their tax credits going and they're not high earners in the first place. Why did you ignore all these warnings?
Well, we were very clear, and I think the Chancellor made the position very clear about looking to move our economy to a new place. That does mean we have to make difficult decisions in this period of time to make sure we get to that point where we've got a higher wage economy with lower taxes, lower welfare dependency.
But you're taking the tax credits away before the higher wages come through. And even when they do not compensate for the loss in the tax credits. Everybody points that out, from the IFS to the Resolution Foundation, which is chaired by a Tory. It was clear from the beginning you were going to hit those at the lower end of the income scale.
Well, let's take the IFS outline as a good example of this. That does not look at the picture in the round. It doesn't account for not just some of the increase in salaries that are coming through, the reduction in fuel duty, the freeze, which is a real-time reduction in council tax, that actually when you look at the entire picture of the economy and somebody's income and a family's financial position, actually is in a much better place. And in the long run,
but they're not. I'm sorry, that is just not true.
The average family
and the House of Commons Library research shows this, which does take into account the rise in tax thresholds and the rise in the what you now call the national minimum wage. When you take that into account, poorer families on tax credits, working poorer families, are still out by between 1,500 and 1,600 quid a year. For people like that, it's a ton of money.
That is a lot of money, but I don't think that also takes into account some of the other changes that are going on in the economy in terms of the reduction in the fuel cost, partly through the reduction in fuel duty in some of these areas.
That.
No, but that is actually the wider picture for the economy. And we do have, and actually we do have, Andrew, so we do have some control over that.
Are you seriously telling me?
Actually, we do have control over that.
Well, you're only on the tax side. You don't,
which is a substantial part of
where we are. You may think you control lots of things. You don't control the world price of oil.
But the tax is quite a large part of that.
Are you seriously telling me that families, when you include the tax credit changes, you include the rise in the minimum wage, you include the rise in the tax threshold, they're still about 1,500 quid worth off. Are you telling me that the fall in fuel prices is going to compensate them for that?
I'll give you an example of the fact that the figures you're quoting do not take account of the entire picture of the economy and the entire tax picture of what a family or an individual has in their life. They can change, but at the moment, and what we're looking at as fuel duty is reduced, and I'm using that as one example, council tax is reduced in real terms, in many areas it's reduced overall. Actually, people are seeing a different position to what some of those things that take very focus points don't give a full picture.
None of that comes near compensating the people who will lose most. Your own side's telling you that. Your own think tanks are telling you that. Your own Tory supporting media are telling you that. So also, and you will now. You will. You tell us. You will have to change, won't you?
Well, there are also
people
there are also people out there, just if you let me answer the first part, Andrew, there are people out there as well making the point, quite rightly, exactly as the Chancellor and the Prime Minister have done, that we need to change our economy from a high welfare, high tax to low tax. And that is an important change for our economy's benefit in the long run.
But you are going to change this now, aren't you?
The Chancellor has also said very clearly, he's always said he will listen to what people are saying.
Well, he hasn't always said that. He's only saying it now.
He has been very clear that he's listening to what people are saying, and he will come back at the autumn statement, which will look at how we take this forward and deal with transitions, because ultimately we do need to move to that position where we have a higher wage, lower tax, lower welfare.
Okay, that's the fourth time you've said that. Labour's obviously against this. It was unclear to begin with, but it is now clear that you're against it. You're voting against it. You've urged the Lords to vote against it too. Let me ask you two questions. Does Labour have any policy for welfare reform?
Well, our position at the moment, as you said, is that we are against these tax credit changes. But, you know, it's the start of a parliament. Over the next 5 years, we will want to develop our full policy for welfare reform that we put to the people in our manifesto at the next election. We've just lost an election.
At the moment, you have no policy for welfare reform.
Well, at the moment, we do have a policy, which is that we're opposing the tax credit changes.
We know what you're against. I'm asking you what you would reform on welfare.
Well, for example, in the welfare bill yesterday, we opposed, for example, the reduction in the benefit cap from 26,000 to 23,000.
I'm not asking you what you're against. I'm trying to find out what you would be in favour of, because so far that means you're against welfare reform, as seen by the Tories. But I submit it would be possible to have a Labour-inclined welfare reform, and I'm simply asking you, can you give us an indication of what that would be?
Well, we are not going to have a full developed policy, having just lost an election in May where we got hammered, and we've got 4.5 years.
Oh, you're having a debate. Give us a hint of what you contribute to the debate.
What
will you contribute to the debate?
We're having a debate.
Well, your idea.
What I personally contribute to the debate, well, we'll have to look at where we are in 4 years' time. We've got universal credit coming in, the national living wage or the national increase in the national minimum wage will come in, which we do support. That will obviously change the welfare landscape in 2019, 2020. Okay. So we'll have to look at the impact of that.
All right, let me come on to my second question. You are committed, as I understand it, to balance the current budget, not the overall budget, but the current budget.
Yeah.
The cut in tax credits, may be right or wrong, but it is designed to contribute to the balancing of the current budget, because tax credits are current spending, it's not investment. If you're against this, that's $4.5 billion. Where would you find that $4.5 billion to continue with the balancing of the current budget?
Well, I think we'd have to make some different choices. So we'd have to ask ourselves, should we be increasing the inheritance tax threshold to £1 million?
Okay, that's $1 billion.
Yes, it is $1 billion.
$1 billion.
Also, you know, we have got the lowest corporation tax in the G20. Do we need to reduce it down to 18 pence from 20 pence? That's something else we should look at. So the other options...
you were in the last time I looked in the Commons, you were in favour of that.
No. We have asked questions about whether we should be reducing corporation tax at the moment from 20 pence to 18 pence. So there are other options that we think the Chancellor
doesn't get you $4.5 billion, does it?
What, reducing from 20 pence to 18 pence?
Yeah.
Over a Parliament?
No, it's a year.
Sorry.
A year. You would need to find to balance it every year.
Well,
the current budget you're committed to balancing.
Right, you could probably find money from making different choices from what the Chancellor is making. So you could do, as I say,
understand that. That's why I'm interested.
You could make a decision on inheritance tax. you know,
You could take away pension tax relief from those on the higher rates.
yeah, well, that is a possibility, but that's not something we are currently looking at.
You know?
No.
I thought you were having a debate.
Well, it's not something that we are.
I'm just
it's not-
trying to help you have
no,
the
no,
debate.
Well,
I'm
maybe
throwing that into. I'm throwing that. I've already been invited to join the shadow cabinet.
Yes.
So I'm throwing that into the debate.
Well, that's very welcome, and I hope you come along to one of our national policy
You're the
forums
second one that's
and put that
invited
in
me.
there.
Second invite. All right.
We'll talk about
All
it.
right. I'm going to stop it there at the invite.